On today's show, a question. What's happening in Minnesota's farm country? Record corn crops, disappearing grasslands, more drainage, and declining water quality. We'll explore these issues in a special series of reports on Minnesota Bound. And later, an autumn sight in nature that few folks ever see, the ritual of migration for Minnesota's purple martins. Our Minnesota Bound Classic this week explores the South Dakota town of Winner. That is a winner when the game is pheasant hunting. Those stories and more next.
Minnesota Bound. Brought to you by Minnesota's select GMC dealers.
Hi everybody, Raven and I welcome you to the show, and a special show it is. You've probably heard the news about what's happening in Minnesota's farm country, drastic changes in our landscape. Well, for the next 4 weeks, we intend to take a look at these issues, and we begin with a question. Minnesota, going down the drain? Once upon a time, Minnesota was the land of sky-blue waters, with untainted lakes, clean rivers, and a vast sea of prairie grasses, dotted with duck-producing wetlands. Today, Minnesota has become the land of drained wetlands, disappearing grasslands, soiled rivers and lakes, tainted groundwater coming from Minnesota's farm country. Headlines in Minnesota's largest newspapers regularly sound the alarm. There's trouble brewing down on the farm.
There's a rapid change occurring on the landscape in the prairies.
Historically had 18 million acres of grass. Today we've got 220,000, give or take, acres of native prairie left. Less than, give or take 1% of the native prairie that was there once upon a time is left.
What we're seeing is the disappearance of wetlands. We're seeing an immense increase in drainage, primarily in the form of drain tiles.
In essence, a drained farm field speeds water off cropland and into ditches, creeks, and rivers. In addition, nature's natural water filters, grassland, is also disappearing at a rapid rate, according to DNR. Strips of grassland, called buffers, which are intended to slow the rush of water from fields, also are disappearing as landowners seek more ground to plant. The result has been Minnesota's water quality is declining, and wildlife species that rely on grassland for habitat also are facing hard times. For example, ringneck pheasants, the state's most popular game bird, has declined by more than 50% in the last decade.
Even if you don't hunt, even if you don't fish, people value wildlife. And you look at the populations of prairie grassland nesting birds, they're declining. They decline just like pheasants do when there's no grass.
Since 2008, roughly 1.3 million acres of grasslands in Minnesota have been converted to corn, soybeans, and wheat production. Looking ahead to the next 4 years, starting in 2013, nearly 626,000 acres of CRP, a conservation reserve program, may be plowed under in Minnesota when CRP contracts expire. Critics fear the nation's water quality is in trouble.
EPA just released a report where they looked at 2,000 U.S. streams and rivers and found that over half of them were in poor health, largely due to nitrogen and phosphorus, and that's largely from agricultural operations.
Minnesota is also losing water faster as farmers seek to improve crop yields with increased drainage of cropland. One example, in 1999, the Bois des Sioux Watershed District approved drainage permits for 2.9 miles of subsurface draining. In 2009, that figure had climbed to nearly 780 miles. And in 2011, drain requests reached more than 1,550 miles in one watershed.
Drainage does boost their yields. So there's a huge incentive for them to drain. The cost of drainage has gone way down with new technology. Now, in a lot of cases, farmers can do it themselves.
The most recent water quality report in Minnesota said more than 25% of the state's waterways are too contaminated with nitrates to be used for drinking water. And more than 70% of those nitrates were coming from farming operations, the report said.
We used to think of nitrates as a groundwater issue, and phosphorus was the surface water issue. Keep the soil on the land, the soil doesn't get in the water, you don't get the phosphorus in the water. And now we have data, and it's after 30 years of research, it's university tested, that says we've got a nitrate problem in surface water.
We've made essentially no real solid progress on water quality related to agriculture, and what's happening now is just reversing course.
Clearly, Minnesota's landscape has and is constantly changing. Indeed, the state's wetlands and grasslands continue to disappear, and the quality of our water, flowing in our rivers or drinking glasses, is also declining. These are the facts, but who or what's to blame for what's happening? More importantly, what to do about it? It's a controversial topic with no easy answers. That's next. When we return, we'll continue exploring the troubled news coming from Minnesota's farm country. Stay with us.
Minnesota Bound, brought to you by Minnesota's select GMC dealers. Seven Clans Casino, Connecticut, and by Rapala.
At GMC, incredible thinking is everywhere. It's in the state-of-the-art dealerships. It's in a customer experience that's ranked highest by J.D. Power. And it's in the advanced engineering of the entire GMC lineup. Now get 0% financing for 60 months on any of these GMC models. Plus, 1 year of SiriusXM on Acadia and Terrain.
Time now to continue our look at what's happening in Minnesota's farm country and what we are losing. Minnesota's landscape is changing faster than most of us realize, and the consequences appear to be increasing as well. Fewer pastures, less grassland, more farmland under cultivation, more drainage, fewer wetlands, more flooding, and declining water quality.
I think you have to look at recognizing that tile drainage has an impact on water quality. So rather than just getting it off the land and putting it into the public waters, that we have some type of treatment so that there is a cost.
We're intensifying drainage across the Midwest. We're farming every square foot in response to these unusually high crop prices.
So does that mean the more we plant, the more we drain, the more problems we'll have?
It's not an easy question to answer. What the scientists tell me is that the drainage is going to increase the flow in the rivers on average. The way I look at it is that the drainage is increasing the risk of flooding. It's not necessarily causing the flooding, but it's contributing to this, this overall increased stream flow.
It's too easy to both defend and criticize if we just call it drainage. And our effort is to figure out how do different drainage components, different drainage systems function across the state. It's different in different places. And we have to also recognize that a tremendous amount of the agricultural tiling and drainage we see right now is simply replacing systems that are antiquated.
Between 2006 and 2011, farmers in Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, and the Dakotas converted 1.3 million acres of grassland to grow corn and soybeans, according to a study by South Dakota State University. Last year in Minnesota, farmers planted 8.7 million acres to corn, a record. But when one crop goes up, another goes down.
Wildlife habitat, pheasants, ducks, deer are a product of the land just like corn and soybeans and sugar beets. To provide for pheasants, ducks, or deer, they need some space on the landscape.
In Jackson County, Minnesota, ducks and pheasants once thrived amid nearly 9,000 acres of wetlands. Today, less than 1,300 acres remain, many degraded.
Economic forces are just compelling landowners to come out of the CRP contracts if they're in them and plow up any grass that's out there. If I was the average Minnesota duck hunter, what would concern me the most is what's happening in North and South Dakota, because that is the place where currently most of our ducks are coming from.
Once a sea of grasses, both North and South Dakota have lost nearly 50% of their grassy landscape, putting America's largest duck factory at risk. No grasslands, no ducks, and now, no pheasants. In 2013, ringneck pheasant counts in Iowa, Minnesota, South and North Dakota all dropped drastically, by as much as 70%.
I think part of what's going on out there is kind of a gold rush mentality to farm every square foot. Conservation way in the back seat or in the bed of the pickup truck in order to cash in on this gold rush.
But who can blame a farmer for seeking increased profits? Almost nobody. Yet who wants a landscape of only corn and soybeans, muddy rivers, and tainted drinking water?
I don't look just at $7 corn. I look at, as a farmer, how much profit potential do I have on that acre? And not only are commodity prices higher than they were 10 and 15 years ago, my expenses are higher too.
Farmers that I'm aware of and polls that I've seen and surveys that I've seen indicate that farmers are by and far the best stewards of our land and are very deeply concerned about the condition of land and water, which is why they have embraced conservation to the extent that they have. We have a record number of acres enrolled in conservation programs today.
We all know we need the products of the land, but we maintain that there is a place for conservation on every farm. There is room for grass, there's room for wetlands.
Is there a place for soil conservation and wildlife on today's farms? If not, why not? When farmers are enjoying record profits for growing corn and soybeans, do they still practice good land stewardship? Do they care about clean water? We'll examine those questions next week. Up next, a lakeside seat for an autumn moment of nature brought to you by those graceful flyers we call purple martins. In my world, good water is important for many reasons. The first, drinking water. My well water was full of unpleasant smelling minerals. That is, until Connecticut installed my new water system. Now we have Connecticut water, common sense in a glass. No more expensive plastic bottles. Yes, Connecticut drinking water is clean and worry-free for the whole family. The other important water in my world? Great fishing water. Right, Raven? Connecticut, better water flows from better thinking. If you've never seen a purple martin in flight, well, you deserve to, because it's quite a spectacle. It's a bird that a lot of people are concerned about in Minnesota, but we found just a whole bunch of them going south. When autumn comes to Minnesota, ducks do it, robins do it, most birds do it. They migrate, they leave. But no bird gathers to fly south in such a spectacular fashion as these. Purple martins all. A moment in nature to behold.
Right now they're done feeding for the day, so they're coming in and they're safety in numbers type of thing.
An aerial show to end the day, yes, but two, a show to worry about. Lee Bakewell does.
I don't know if you're aware, but they were placed on the Endangered Species Act about 2 weeks ago. Bald eagle came off the list, but purple martins went on. Before their migration, they form a roost each year, and somehow they decide where to go, and then thousands of them converge on this area.
Bird watchers, too, converge, watching a mystery plot.
There's a lot that we don't know about how they select these sites. So it's kind of a new thing. To find these sites is really interesting. We use Doppler radar. The birds actually, because their body is heat and moisture, will actually show up in the mornings, dispersing from the roost as a big cloud formation, if you will, on Doppler radar.
They always come back to the very same state, county, city, and backyard. The very same house where they raised young successfully the year before. So nobody really knows how they do it. So it's kind of magical that they make it back.
Make it back, indeed. These Minnesota-raised purple martins are migrating to, well, you won't believe it.
Most of them will go to Louisiana and then they'll cross the Gulf in one shot. And then they'll spend some time in the Yucatan, and then they'll head to Central America and end up Brazil eventually. Generally, they start coming back in early April and then all the way through May.
But when they return to Minnesota, trouble lurks for purple martins.
The thing that amazes me is that if it weren't for humans, they would probably become extinct. Now, how many other animals can you say that about? The people-provided housing is a necessity for them. So if they don't have the housing, they die out.
Birds have decreased by about 80% since the 1960s, and that's according to the breeding bird survey data. There's a lot of factors, anything from inclement weather, cold weather when they get back from migration, to nest parasites, to competition from invasive species. The European starling and the English house sparrow have devastating effects on them.
Which is why these folks created a Minnesota Purple Martin working group.
We have about 300 people on the list, I think.
Purple martins are a very unique species. They depend upon humans for their nesting now. And that's kind of a tradition that has started with the Native Americans in the southeast part of the U.S., providing hollowed out gourds for them. And the birds they now nest in gourds and large wooden houses.
So perhaps it's fair to say this spectacle of autumn, this ritual of migration for purple martins, is still happening because, well, because of us. Something we've done right with nature. Still ahead, if you're a pheasant hunter, the town of Winter, South Dakota may have a double meaning.
Minnesota Bound, brought to you by Hennepin County Medical Center, Minnesota Agricultural Water Resources Coalition, Minnesota soybean farmers and their checkoff.
You know, for me, there's no better way to spend the summer than be on a Minnesota lake or river. But now, thanks to Hennepin County Medical Center, you've got a way to make sure your day outdoors is time well spent. HCMC shares our passion for the outdoors, which is why they put together a website filled with safety tips and videos to help you plan and be prepared. And it's right at your fingertips at home or on the go. Simply visit hcmc.org/outdoors and get the most out of your summer. You know, they call South Dakota the pheasant capital of the world. Well, the capital within the capital is also a winner. It's the town of Winter. 100 years ago, when this pheasant from the Orient arrived in South Dakota, it needed a winning combination, a prairie to survive and prosper. Now, a century later, this may be it. A birdie spot with a perfect name, Winter, Winter, South Dakota. Rooster! Some say if South Dakota is the pheasant hunting capital of the world, Winter is the capital within the capital.
Tripp County triples in size during that first opening weekend of hunting season.
On the third Saturday in October, the streets and storefronts turn to hunter orange.
Lots of hunters, of course, come in from every state in the Union, and Alaska, you know, they're from all over.
On Main Street, the local druggist, Gene Hansen, stocks more than pills on his shelves.
When I bought my partner out 32 years ago, I decided to put in a small sporting goods section and finally developed into a big sporting goods section. It is my busiest time of the year. It's better for me than Christmas time.
It's Saturday morning on opening day. Hunting starts at noon, giving local 4-H club members time to serve pancakes to visiting hunters to make a little money. Speaking of money, plenty of that comes to town too.
The airport, of course, is just insane opening weekend. We have corporate jets and private Lear jets coming in here. It brings new money into the community that is all agriculture.
Oh yes, pheasant hunting.
There it is.
Hunters love it, so do the dogs. And so does a fella named Cooch. He cleans all those fallen birds, $3 a piece.
We started out, first year we did 6,000 pheasants. We've done as many as 17,000 now in 1 year.
Kuchera's business only runs from opening day to closing day, but he likes his customers. Friendly hunters who come to a friendly town surrounded by friendly fields of pheasants. It sounds like a winner.
Winner's a winner, for me.
Well, that about does it for us. Remember, introduce a kid to the great outdoors, and remember, we'll be back next week with more of a look at what's happening in farm country. I'm Ron Sharon, of course, always the star of the show here. A very antsy star is Raven.
Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433. For more information on these stories and more, catch us on the web at mnbound.com.